Greetings, Kingdom family, and welcome to part 2 of the first segment labeled "The Third Temple is being built right now before the final terraform from our King." Terraform. It has a little ring to it. Terraform, which pretty much means the re-landscaping of a current habitation. Again, when we stated what the change will be, we know that at the time of the judgment of Mystery Babylon, which is going to be a spiritual judgment, we know that once our King sets his foot on the Mount Olives, you will see a complete terraform. You will see complete destruction, and you will see complete judgment. At that time, there will be no saving of souls, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to check what will be the complete terraform of our current habitation, please look into Zechariah chapter 14. Okay, Zechariah chapter 14, read it in its entirety, because in that chapter it tells you what the complete destruction will be, what the complete destruction of Babylon, spiritual Babylon, will be. And at that time, ladies and gentlemen, we will hope and wish and pray that we are in the clouds with our Savior before he touches the ground. All right, so in the first segment, we talked about New Jerusalem, us being the lively stones. We talked about our souls being written upon as a tablet. So what happens with the others that do not make it, that are not living stones? And where do they go? What happens with them? This segment, we're going to figure that out. So we know that the Father and the Son is going to collect his jewels being stones. Stones being built to build New Jerusalem. But what happens with the stones that are disregarded? Let's go figure that out. So we have jewels that we talked about in Malachi chapter 3 verse 17. Okay, jewels, if we look it up, it is Strong's H5459. Okay, H5459. And that word study means a valued property or peculiar treasure. What happens to those that are not gathered? We know that in Revelation chapter 14, as a matter of fact, let's go into it real quick. Revelation chapter 14. There are two vines that are taken up. You have the harvest. One vine is taken up. And then you have the grapes that are on earth and that are thrown into the wrath of the Father and the Son. Two places, remember this, ladies and gentlemen, two places supernaturally that will face judgment. Rewards or judgment, that will be the two. In Revelation 14, and I'll cut it right now. I'll give you small snippets. Again, read the whole chapter in its entirety so you can get the whole layout, okay? But we're going to be talking about Babylon right now, spiritual Babylon. Always put this in your mind. This is not a Babylon that is built with hands. We're talking about a supernatural judgment that's going to be going on. It's just as when we stated with the catching away of souls. This is going to be a supernatural dynamic that's going to be going on. Okay? So if you could put your mind there, the scriptures will open up to you and you will understand them that much better. So, Revelation chapter 14, and go down to verse 8. And it states, "And there followed another angel saying, Babylon is fallen, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication." Cities inhabited with people. Cities being people. So we know Babylon will face destruction. We also know that the harvest, which is the catching away of the souls, or in layman's terms of what many call the rapture, which rapture is not even stated in your scriptures, will be the supernatural change. These things you will be seeing will be in a supernatural realm. If you go a little bit down and see chapter 14, chapter 14, verse 14, it'll say, I looked and behold a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. Another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, saying, Thrust thy sickle in, and reap, for the time is come for thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. This is going to be your catching away. The harvest of the earth is ripe. Those righteous souls, jewels, stones, go to be with Yeshua, the Son of Man, sitting on the cloud. Now, there is another bunch. Listen to this. If we go into verse 18, and it says, And another angel came out of the altar, which had the power of fire, and cried with a loud voice with him that said, Throw in your sharp sickle, and thrust in your sharp sickle, to gather the clusters of the vines of the earth. If you can, circle earth. For her grapes are fully ripe. And the angel thrust in his sickle unto the earth, and gathered the vine of the earth, and cast it into the great winepress of the wrath of the Father. There it is right there. You have one vine taken away to be with Yeshua in the clouds. You have another bunch, grapes of wrath, that remain on the earth to be judged. These are the empty stones of Babylon. This is the empty kingdom that resides on the earth today and is being built and constructed with empty stones. And we're going to go into it right now. Okay, so we have that one. Let's go into 1 Corinthians chapter 3:9. We'll first get what the Father builds, and then of course is what his enemy builds. So 1 Corinthians chapter 3 verse 9. Let's see what we have here. 1 Corinthians. Okay. All right. And it states, For we are laborers together with the Father. You are the Father's husbandry. You are the Father's building. Right there. So you already know again. You're being built as a spiritual habitation for the Father without hands. So now we know where the Antichrist lives. It is the opposite of where the Father lives. Remember that, because we're going to come back to it. Okay, so we have that one. Now we're going to go into Revelation 18. Go back to Revelation. We're going to go back and forth and back. All right, Revelation chapter 18. And we're going to see where we're supposed to be. 18 verse 4. And it states, And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues. Which plagues? And where? Remove yourself. How? Separate yourself. How? We know that through our scriptures, the Father has been telling us, separate yourself from the evils of this earth, because when this earth gets judged, you do not want to be a partaker of the sins of this earth. We just read it. Okay? We have to know how to separate our minds as well in order to be not carnally minded, but spiritually minded, because most of this that we read, ladies and gentlemen, is spiritually discerned. Once you could get there through the power of the Holy Spirit of the Father, of course, through the guidance of his Son, we're able to understand these scriptures and they come alive. Okay? So we see the separation. Now we'll continue that. Go into 2 Corinthians chapter 6. 2 Corinthians chapter 6. And we're going to come back. Keep your finger in Revelations. Go into 2 Corinthians chapter 6. Let me see here. And 16. And it states, "And what agreement does the temple of the Father have with idols? For you are the temple of the living God. As the Father said, I will dwell in them and walk in them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Wherefore, come out from among them, and be ye separate." So, which temple is constructed with your soul? Is it Babylon or is it the Father's temple? They're both being built right now. Remember that. Okay? Let's go into Ephesians 2:10. All right, so Ephesians. Here we go. Chapter 2, verse 10. And it states, "For we are his workmanship, created in Yeshua the Messiah, unto good works, which the Father has before ordained that we should walk in them." Okay? Right there. The workmanship. The workmanship, the construction. Where are you going to be, ladies and gentlemen? Kingdom family. Where do you want to be? Do you want to be with the Messiah? If you do, choose him now, today. Or do you want to await for the event? Await for the judgment of Babylon, where there is no retribution. There is no going back at this time. There is no saying, man, I missed out. This is the reason why we need to start to polish ourselves as polishing a stone, and prepare to be tightly fit together with the cornerstone, which is our head, Yeshua the Messiah. Let's go back into 2 Corinthians real quick. 2 Corinthians verse 5, or chapter 5 rather. Yeah, 2 Corinthians chapter 5, and it states, "For we know that if our earthly house," if you have your pens with you, circle house, "of this tabernacle were dissolved, we have a building of the Father, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens." Verse 2, "For in this we groan earnestly, desiring to be clothed upon with our house," circle house, "which is from heaven." Our house, our tabernacle. We have an earthly tabernacle and we have a heavenly tabernacle. We went through the lively stones. We went through our glorified body. We went through the stones currently being constructed for the construction of New Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven as a bride adorned for her husband. And that is the dynamic that never changes. Okay? So we have the workmanship. Let's go into, stay in Ephesians, go into 2:19. Oh, we'll go back to Ephesians. Sorry. Should have had your finger in there, but it's okay. So let's go back to Ephesians chapter 2 and verse 19. All right, and it states, "Now Therefore, you are no more strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and of the household of the Father, and are built upon the foundation of the apostles, the prophets, Yeshua the Messiah himself being the chief cornerstone. So there you have it again. You know what is building New Jerusalem that comes down in the clouds with our King. Therefore, there should be no speculation on what is going to be going down on this earth when the Son is in the air with his kingdom before it's delivered to the Father. Are we encouraged? Let's go back into Corinthians. We're going to be going back and forth because that's how we have to read scriptures, ladies and gentlemen. You have to take a little bit here, take a little bit there, connect the dots, and it makes a jam in your mind. All right? So, 2 Corinthians, let's see. Well, actually, we already did that one. That's okay. Let's go into Old Testament. Let's go into the book of Job real quick. Good old Job. We just talked about him being one of the chiefs of righteousness. All right, so let's go into Job. Job chapter 28. All right, so let's go into our Old Testament right before Psalms. Job chapter 28, verse 3. And it states, he setteth an end to darkness, and searches out all the perfection, the stones, again, circle stones, of darkness and the shadow of death. Something should be making a ringing in our heads. Shadow of death, stones of the shadow of death. Remember our favorite psalm, Psalm 23. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. This is talking about us walking through the valley right now. The hardships and tribulations that you go through right now are the darkness of the shadow of death, which resides all around us. Those stones and or souls that inhabit the shadow of death are the ones that plague you, because those souls are condemned souls, and there is no retribution for them. I want to quiz you real quick. The second death stated in our scriptures, of course, in Revelation, is what? What is the second death indicative of? The second death is indicative of permanent separation from the Father with no retribution. That means there is no going back. There is no reason why you should not be able to make your decision and continuously sanctify your mind and your soul in order to be one of those polished stones that builds New Jerusalem. Remember that. Let me see here. What else do I have? So we're talking about the stones. Let's go into Isaiah. Isaiah 34. Stay in the Old Testament. Go to Isaiah. Isaiah 34. Let me see which one I want here. Isaiah 34:11. All right. And it states, but the pelican and the bittern shall possess it. The owl and the raven shall dwell in it. And he shall stretch upon it the line of confusion, Babylon, and the stones of emptiness. Stones of emptiness. Kingdom family, why are these stones and or souls empty? These stones are empty because they have permanently been relinquished from the Father's bosom. The Father is no longer with them, and they are in permanent, listen to this, they are in permanent judgment, condemnation, plucked twice from the roots. These are these are individuals and or creatures that have permanently separated themselves from the favor of the Father. Don't let that be you. Okay? So, as a matter of fact, let's go into Revelation real quick. Something just jumped into my mind. We're talking about the destruction of Babylon, spiritual Babylon. Who inhabits Babylon? We just talked about that. The stones, the empty stones that we just talked about, that currently build Babylon, which will be judged in the end. Let's go into Revelation chapter 16 real quick. Revelation chapter 16. And let's see, we'll start at 18. And it states, "And there were voices, thunders, and lightning. There was a great earthquake." Please underline earthquake. "Such as was not since men were upon the earth. So mighty an earthquake and so great. And the great city was divided into 3 parts. And the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon came into remembrance before the Father, to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. Every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. And there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven, every stone weighing about a talent. And men blasphemed the Father because of the plague of the hail, for the plague thereof was exceeding great." So we see what happened there. You had an earthquake, the Terraform. All the mountains and all the islands are fled. Then what is remaining? Spiritual Babylon, the empty stones, the condemned stones. This is when the final judgment comes upon Mystery Babylon. Okay? And where will you be at the time of the terraforming and the destruction and the condemnation of Mystery Babylon? Hopefully, you and I will be in the clouds with our King. Okay? New Jerusalem. So we have that one. We have the destruction of Babylon. Remember when we went into one of our first scriptures, into Revelation 21, where he says there will be a new heaven, new earth. What is the reason being? What's wrong with this earth right now? It has to be changed. That supernatural change, when you get your glorified body, when you get your white stone, that is going to be your existence with our King, with his Father, and in the kingdom, New Jerusalem. Okay? So we went through those. We went through the lively stones, white stones. Let me see what else I have for you here. Let's go into Isaiah 14 real quick before we conclude. Go into Isaiah. Let me see here. Isaiah 14. And of course, we all know that Isaiah 14 talks about our arch enemy and what awaits him as well. All right, so Isaiah 14. Let's go to down to verse 19. And it states, "But thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch, and as the raiment of those that are slain, thrust through with a sword, that go down to the stones of the pit." Please circle stones. Stones of the pit. Souls of the pit. These are not stones that are lively stones. These are not stones filled with the favor of the Father, because these are condemned souls. These are condemned stones that inhabit the pit, that will be cast into the lake of fire in the end times. Okay? So, we had those 2 lessons for you today, talking about the lively stones built for New Jerusalem and talking about the empty stones that are being built for Babylon right now. Our scriptures told us in our last lesson that when Yeshua, our King, stated that he will build his kingdom and the gates of hell will not prevail against it, this is exactly what he meant. Okay? The gates of hell are constructing a building that will be condemned by judgment in the end times. Don't let that be you. Okay? Hopefully, these messages encourage you. Hopefully, grabbing your sword every day, humbling yourselves, praying in the Spirit with the Father in his kingdom through his Son as his bride is going to be as beneficial for you as it is for me. Okay? So, I would like to also thank every single fellow heir and fellow citizen of the kingdom family. If I don't get to your emails or I don't get to your comments, please don't take it personal. I want to take this time to thank you, because it's through your encouragement that you give me the encouragement that I need in order to keep pressing, and we're going to make it there. We will be there in the clouds with our King, Yeshua the Messiah. Okay? So until then, I'd like to thank you. I love you all, and I'll see you on the next one.